every week. We go through, we're going through the 30th juz of the Quran, the 30th para of the Quran, and we're going through surah by surah, trying to figure out how the key message of that surah helps us connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Last week we did Surah Al-Humaza, and I'm going to start with a review of the key lessons that we got from that surah. So, Bismillah. We said that in order to be under the shade of mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in order to be one of the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is a checklist that we got from Surah Al-Asr, which we did the week before. But if somebody forgets that checklist and just follows their whims and desires, we will end up with obviously there'll be problems in the afterlife, but there'll be problems in this world as well. And we all know people like that. We all come across people like that. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from ever being a person like that. And if we are, or if we've ever been, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might allow us to climb back into the shade of His mercy. But people like that generally have a very low character, and that low character is observable by other people, a very worldly kind of a character. The key point that was made in Surah Al-Humaza was that people like that, they tend to really, really love wealth. I mean, love money to the extent that they think it's going to help them live on forever. يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَالَهُ أَخْلَدَ. So that was a key characteristic. This person loves money to the extent that they think that their wealth is going to help them extend their life forever, which is, of course, not true. But that's how the brain starts thinking when they spend all of their time focused on that one thing. And we also said that it is our job to assess our character based on some of the characteristics of people like that mentioned in Surah Al-Humaza. So, for example, do we backbite? Do we talk bad about people behind their back? One. Number two, do we slander other people? For example, do we say bad things about people which are not even true? The third thing that is mentioned in Surah Humaza is, does money rule the heart? And the point that we emphasized was there's nothing wrong with having money. In fact, we should all try and ease the burdens, the financial burdens that we have on ourselves, so that we can, inshallah, ease other people's financial burdens as well. But it's wrong to have money rule your heart. And we also looked at the examples of people from Quraysh that were around the Prophet ﷺ. We talked about Abu Lahab, and we talked about Umayyah bin Khalaf. And then we saw the example of somebody who was completely different, like Suhaib al-Rumi, who had a lot of money. But then when he had to choose between his money and his connection with God, he said, forget the money, and I'm going to go ahead and make the connection with God. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he arrived in Medina, the Prophet ﷺ told him that your deal was a good deal. Rabih al-bay. Whatever deal you made, it was a good deal. Okay, that was Surah Al-Humaza. And this is a quick review. Today, inshallah, we'll be doing Surah Al-Feel. And generally, the verses of the Quran, shouldn't say generally, always, the sequence of the verses of the Quran has a meaning in it too. So since we talked about this kind of person who loves wealth so much that they think it's going to help them last forever, Surah Al-Feel is the following surah of the Quran where such a person who loves wealth and power is mentioned, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ended this person and all of their wealth and power in a way which was very public and everyone got to see it. And it became one of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is Surah Al-Feel. That's what we're going to be talking about today. This surah was, of course, revealed in Mecca. It was addressing the people of Mecca because the people of Mecca knew about this event very well. Most of you, I'm going to assume, most of you already know the story of Ashab al-Fil, or the elephant, the people of the elephant. We are taught this story as children. In fact, these last few surahs of the Quran that we're doing, these are the surahs that we generally recite in our prayers, and we generally recite them because they're short. But there is another benefit. There's another reason why it's helpful to, or why it's significant that we recite these surahs. These short surahs may be short in length, but they carry a very heavy weight in terms of their meaning. So Surah Al-Fil, it takes maybe 20 seconds to go through end to end. But if we understand the meaning and the next time we recite it in prayer, we contemplate the meaning, inshallah, it will have that kind of an impact on our hearts. The story, I'm going to just repeat it very quickly for you, but I might add some details that you might not be aware of. So I have at the top a map of the Middle East. the Middle East and East Africa region. There was a battle going on in the 5th, 6th, and 7th centuries between the two superpowers of the world at that time. One superpower was Persia, which was ruling from Iran, and the other superpower was Rome, that was ruling from what we today call Turkey. So these two superpowers were colliding with each other at that time in the, as I mentioned, 5th, 6th, and 7th centuries. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ was born in the year 571 after Hijrah, and that year is the year where this event happened. That year is called AlFeel, or the year of the elephant. The Arabs didn't keep a numerical calendar. So they remembered years based on, oh, which year was that? Oh, that was the year of sorrow, for example. Which year? That was the year of the elephant. And what was so special about the story of the elephant? The entire Arab region knew about this. Of course, many of the people living in the surrounding countries knew about it as well. The event was that these two superpowers, in their control of the region, they decided to control parts of Arabia as well. And the only part of Arabia which was urban at that time was Yemen. The rest of Arabia is just desert. No one cares about it. Nobody wants to go and live in the middle of the desert. So Yemen was the only urban area where there were cities, and they had agriculture, established agriculture, and a community and a civilization. So that was all Yemen. So it was Yemen that they were trying to control. So initially, the Romans had some influence there. They put their governor there. And then the Persians put their governor there because they won the battle over Yemen. And then finally, about 20, 30 years before the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, once again, the Romans put their governor there. And the person they put over there as their governor was a Christian of the closest location to Yemen, which, if you look at the map, that's the region between Sudan and Ethiopia and Eritrea. So that's the region right across the called Bab al-Mandab. See, the Red Sea, right across the Red Sea from them. So this man, again, a very interesting story behind this man as well, but we're going to keep it short because of lack of time. He was known as Abraha al-Ashram, literally meaning Abraha, the one whose nose has been cut off. And there's a reason why the nose was cut off. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the opportunity. Maybe in the future we'll talk about it. But this man was their governor, the Roman governor in Yemen. And he was given the task to establish Roman authority, to make sure the Persians are never able to come back. And his only way of doing that was to convince the Arabs that Romans were the most advanced civilization, the ones who were superior to everyone else. So he had a very large kanisa, or it's a church, sorry, a church. He had a very large church built, struggling with words today. So he had a very large church built in Yemen, and he wanted people from all over Arabia to come to this church. But he discovered that the Arabs didn't do that. He wanted the Arabs to turn over and start coming to the church, because once they become Christians and once they start connecting with the church, the next time the Persians want to invade Yemen, these people will have a spiritual connection with the Romans, and they will not let the Persians back in. They will fight with the Romans against the Persians. That's how he was thinking. When he built this large church, and he made it very beautiful, and his army and his people, they spent a lot of money on it, the Arabs still didn't take to it. And he discovered that the people from Yemen would still go far north into this place, which was called Mecca, and go over there for their spiritual pilgrimage. All over Yemen, people used to do that. And then he investigated and discovered, okay, people from all over Arabia do that as well. And he wanted to change their spiritual direction from Mecca to Yemen. He said, look, my building is so beautiful. That place is in the middle of the desert. Why would you even go there and do that? So the Arabs were not happy with it. And it seems that they tried to damage the church. Again, we don't know if this was a false flag operation done by Abraha himself, or whether the Arabs did that on purpose. But it seems that somebody went and did toilet in inside the church. Or another story is that somebody tried to burn the church down. Allah knows best. It may not even be true. It may just be a fake news, false rumor that Abraham might have spread, because he wanted to arrange an invasion of Mecca. He wanted to have a reason to go and invade Mecca. But such is what happened, and then he arranged the invasion, and it was a huge army, and in that army, thousands and thousands of soldiers. In that army, in order to scare all of the Arab tribes he would meet in between Yemen and Mecca, and if you look at the map, he's going kind of like northwest. And he's going along almost like a mountain range. These are not mountains, these are hills, but it's like a hill range. And there were many tribes that lived along the way as well. In order to scare them, he had elephants that he brought from Africa, and these elephants, they rode on these elephants. Now, something interesting I'll tell you about elephants, because as a part of my work, I've had to interact with elephants as well. They are the Indian or Thai, or for example, basically elephants from Asia. Those are slightly shorter. And then there are elephants from Africa, which it's hard for us to imagine what they look like unless we have actually seen them in real life. They look like they're several stories tall. They're huge. It is those elephants that we're talking about here. It is the African elephants, huge elephants, which even to climb up, there's a ladder to climb up to the top of the elephant. So those elephants are the ones that were in his army, and this army started moving north. In fact, we know from the stories that were narrated among the Arabs, Tawatur, all across Arabia, these stories were well known. His elephant had a name that people know about to this day, and the Arab stories have that name. His elephant was called Mahmud, and other elephants must have had their names as well. And of course, other than and horse, the kinds of trappings you would have for any army that's marching. So the entire army started moving north, came across many tribes. Some tribes tried to stop him uh, and went into battle with him, but were easily removed until he got all the way to Mecca. In fact, specifically the place where he got to is the place right outside of Mecca, which is called Wadi Muhassar, or the Muhassar Valley. That's the photo that you see at the bottom. That's the Muhassar Valley. That's where they camped. And then he started sending his scouts and his army out to gather whatever resources they can from the area around. And the only resources that people living in that region had were camels or other forms of cattle. So they gathered all of these. Among those camels and cattle were the camels of the grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ, whose name, as you know, was Abdul Muttalib. So Abdul Muttalib, who was the chief of Mecca, his camels were also commandeered by the soldiers of Abraha. Now, Abraha and his army are waiting in Wadi Muhassar, and they're waiting for the people of Mecca to send someone to negotiate. And he announced that I am going to uh, I'll let you guys live. No problem with the people of Mecca. You guys just stand aside. I'm not going to bother you. But I've come here to destroy this house because of the outrage that we have faced in Yemen. So eventually, Abdul Muttalib went to see him. And Abraha, it is said and narrated in the stories that all the Arabs tell, Abraha saw Abdul Muttalib, was very impressed with him, and then he came down from his throne, which he must have had in a big tent, and he met Abdul Muttalib and then had Abdul Muttalib sit with him, meaning to honor him. And then he said, okay, tell me, what have you come for? And Abdul Muttalib, he was expecting, would say, okay, I think, you shouldn't invade this house. This is our spiritual center, etc. Abdul Muttalib didn't say anything like that. He just said, I have these camels. He must have had several hundred camels as the chief of Mecca. He said, I have these camels that have been commandeered by your army. I've just come to ask for those. And Abraha was surprised. And then he told Abdul Muttalib, initially when I met you, I was really taken aback by your aura and I was very impressed by your personality. And I expected you to represent this house that you lead the city around. But you're just asking for, like, you're just asking for your camels back. So what gives? I'm surprised that someone like you would do something like this. So Abdul Muttalib said something very simple. He said, look, my camels are such that I am their owner. So I've come to ask for what I own. That house that you're talking about, we have no power to stop you. But that house has an owner. This is Abdul Muttalib, who came from a society that worshipped idols. But they still believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in fact, their belief was that these idols help us connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is what is haram in Islam, which is what is considered shirk. But he said this house is an owner and that it is that owner's job to protect it. So Abraha said, okay, yeah, whatever. So give this guy his camels back. So Abdul Muttalib took his camels and left. Then he told all the people of Mecca that you guys should just leave Mecca and go into the hills and go and protect yourself and hide yourself. And Abraha started his invasion, and the rest is well known. What we know from these narrations that the Arabs tell is that ababil, or these small birds carrying stones, came from the west, which is, if you look at the map of the around the black spot where I've marked the black spot where Mecca is, to the west of that is the Red Sea. So it seems that they came from the Red Sea. And these birds were carrying stones, and those stones were dropped on the army of Abraha. And whoever would be hit by one of those stones, it seems the stone would go through his body, and the army was destroyed. And the Arabs had no way of protecting themselves, but this entire army was destroyed. Right at the moment when they were going to achieve their biggest victory, they were destroyed completely. Abraham himself was also hurt, and the army fled. Some people from that army, it seems, remained in the area around Mecca because they had become blind, and others died along the way. Eventually, Abraha and his army made it back to Yemen, but by that time, Abraha, it seems, had also died, and he had died a very painful and miserable death. And it is described that his body kind of deteriorated and his heart became exposed, and eventually he died. There's more to the story, by the way, but since I'm short on time, I'm going to stick to just this information that I've shared with you. Because of this, the Arabs across Arabia and the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire, all of them who got this information, suddenly started recognizing the significance of this location, Mecca. There's something different about this place, they realized when they got all of this news, that makes it unique. Similarly, the Arabs, they got a confirmation that this is the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the fact that this is the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then is going to be relevant to us when we're going to go through Surah AlFeel. And I want to start with a question. My question is, what is the significance of Kaaba? Why is the Kaaba so important? Why is this place so special? What makes it special? Is there something underneath? Is there something on top? Is there a lot of gold under? I mean, what makes it special? Go ahead. Type in your response in the chat window. What makes the Kaaba special? Why do we, all Muslims all around the world, why on earth do we bow our heads? In fact, we prostrate, we put our heads on the ground in front of the Kaaba. Why? Why not, for example, some mountain in Switzerland? Why not, for example, some it is Allah's home? Sure, it's Allah's home, and you are right, but continue the thought. You are right. That's just the partial answer. It is Allah's home, and it is our Qibla. Sure, but what makes it our Qibla? Why is this our Qibla? Because Prophet Ibrahim a.s. built it. That is also true. Prophet Ibrahim built it, but he wasn't the first one to build it. Again, that doesn't answer the question, why must we prostrate towards the Kaaba? Okay, it is the first place of worship on earth. That is also correct. All this information is correct. That's right, because Allah commanded us. That's the key answer I was looking for. You guys are all right, by the way. But the answer I was looking for that underlines all of this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us. This is Qibla, the point man's senses, heart, soul, and body towards the God are important. God cannot be restricted to something, but needs a dimension of space. That is important. Okay, sure. Yeah, that's right. So, and you're saying above is Bayt al-Ma'mur. Yeah, sure. That's also correct. That's the Qibla in the heavens. The key thing here is that it is a command by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us that we should bow our heads towards some mountain in the Himalayas or some part of the sea, we would have done that. That's the key message. And that message is very important, because if somebody asks you, why is pork haram? Yeah, we can come up with many wisdoms of other worms in it and all that. Sure, all of that is true. But really, it is haram only because Allah ordered us. That's it. That's the only reason. And that we need to be comfortable with that, because that is what the word Muslim means. It means somebody who submits to the will of God. That is why we bow our heads towards the Kaaba, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us, and that's it. Now, there may be many wisdoms behind it. There may even be, you may connect all of the different landmasses together. You come up with the Pangaea, and maybe in the Pangaea it was at a particular location, and maybe that's some specific ratio. All of that might be true. But really, the only reason why we put our heads on the ground in that direction is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us. And let's make sure we are absolutely clear about that, because that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن أول بيت وضع للناس للذي ببكة مباركا وهدى للعالمين. Surely the first house of worship established for humanity is the one at Becca. Becca, by the way, is the old name of Mecca. فيه آيات بينات مقام إبراهيم. In it are it's a blessed sanctuary and a guide for all people. In it are clear signs and the standing place of Ibrahim. وَمَنْ دَخَلَهُ كَانَ آمِنًا. And whoever enters it will be safe. ولله آمن ولله على الناس حج البيت من استطاع إليه سبيلا ومن كفر فإن الله غني عن العالمين. A pilgrimage to this place is an obligation by Allah upon whoever is able among the people. And whoever disbelieves, then surely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in need of any of his creation. That's the key point. Now, notice that it says first house, which means it was built even before Bayt al-Maqdis. Now, Ibrahim alayhi salam built the Kaaba after Bayt al-Maqdis was there. So what's so special? I mean, sorry, my question is, how come this is the first house? Who actually built it? Ibrahim alayhi salam rebuilt it. We know that. He rebuilt it. But who was the first one to build it? When was it first built? If you know, please go ahead and share your response in the chat window. Angels, Adam alayhi salam. Okay, so about the angels, it seems that there is some narration like that, but yes, it has been there since the time of Adam alayhi salam. This place has been a special place since the time of Adam alayhi salam. And Allah knows best what they had on that location at that time, but this place is a marker. That's all it is. It is a marker. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the word ayah. Ayah means sign. It is a sign. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts a marker. And when Allah puts a marker, that marker becomes important for us. So that is the importance of the Kaaba. This is the Kaaba, and we know that the people of the elephant tried to invade the Kaaba and demolish it. We also know about the significance of the Kaaba. One of the brothers was mentioning something about the significance of the Kaaba. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom is unlimited. We are limited human beings, so whatever we come up with in terms of wisdoms and the hikmah behind it, we will remain short. But we can give it a try, just so we appreciate it. Number one, it's a test of our ability to obey the commands of God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders that you make hajj to that house where in the summer it's really hot, in the winter sometimes there's rain and floods. Are you going to go there? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us, I'm going to try to go there. If I have the means, I'll go there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says you worship such that you are prostrating, you're facing and prostrating your head on the ground in the direction of this location in the Middle East. Am I from the Middle East? No. But that's what Allah ordered, and that's what I will do. This is a test of our ability to obey the commands of Allah. This is one. The second wisdom could be that it is a sign of our spiritual unity as Muslims. You see, at the time of prayer, Muslims all over the world stand in ranks and they face this one direction. Wherever you go in the world, what's the question you will ask at the time of prayer? You will ask, what is the direction of the Qibla? And whoever among the Muslims in that location may not understand your question, but if you make kind of signs, you're going to have to pray. And I just say, okay, which direction do I have to face in? And whether it's in Trinidad and Tobago, or it is in Australia, or it is in Pakistan, or it is in some part of the Middle East or Turkey or whatever, or some part of Africa, they will always tell you, okay, this is the direction of the Kaaba, or you will use your compass and you'll figure out. These days we have the technology available. So you use your compass and you figure out, okay, this is the direction of Qibla, and you will face in that direction. Muslims all over the world will do that. So it kind of spiritually unites us. That's an important wisdom behind it. Hajj is made to this as well. What that means is, even though we physically may not be able to be there for Umrah or Hajj, we are joining the Muslims who are there at that time. And the ones who are very close, they make very tight circles. And the ones who are far away, for us, it looks like we're standing in straight lines, but actually we're all facing the Kaaba. Another wisdom is that it gives us a physical direction in our lives. Everyone seeks a direction. Everyone wants a direction in their life. Everyone seeks a purpose. And some people make an ideology their purpose, some ism. Some people take their religious beliefs as their purpose. For us, we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is a direction, a physical direction that keeps us focused. And it's important to emphasize that the direction could have been, for example, the grave of a prophet. There are many prophets buried in different parts of the world, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have told the Prophet, okay, this is the Prophet, and on this in this Prophet's locations, that's the location you should use. But no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose this marker, and that's what we do, which means we do not worship graves. We do not make sujood to graves. We do not bow down to graves. Even though Medina is some distance away, but we are not making sujood towards Medina. We're making sujood towards Mecca because we're worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to do. Now, with this understanding, inshallah, Surah AlFeel, we're going to go through it and it'll make a lot of sense. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم ترى كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل. Have you not seen, O Prophet, how your Lord dealt with the army of the elephant? Now, the person being addressed is the Prophet, but obviously the Quran is for all mankind, not just the Prophet ﷺ, not just the people of Mecca, not just the Arabs, but for all mankind, which means it's for you and me today as well. The story of Abraha has been recorded in the annals of history for all of us to observe. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alam tara, have you not seen? This seeing is actually seeing through the eyes of history, which means we should learn from what has happened in history, which means we should understand the lessons that we get from what has happened to the people of the past. Have you not seen what happened to the people of the elephant? These huge towering elephants. They must have been, obviously, if you imagine that huge towering elephant, they must have been very, very strong and powerful people. Have you not seen what happened to those powerful people? Yeah, they're gone now. Alam yaj'al kaydahum fi tadlil. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not frustrate their scheme? These days, when an army goes to war, they talk about their objectives that they have to achieve in that war. And these people had an objective. And the objective was to reduce the influence of the Kaaba or the centrality of the Kaaba to the Arabs and increase the centrality of Yemen, because that's the place that the Romans were ruling at that time. But their objectives were not achieved because they thought it's a walkover. Easy for us to just go in there, we're going to take it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed otherwise. And that's the key point to those of us who feel very sad and frustrated over what's happening in Gaza, because we see the enemy as being so unbelievably powerful. We can do nothing about it. You and I, we have no means. All we can do is make dua and maybe shed some tears and feel sad. But that dua carries a lot of weight, because Abdul Muttalib, he was they used to worship idols at that time, but he still, at that time, him and all the people of Mecca, they forgot about all the idols. They made dua only to Allah. Even their dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heard. That's the power of dua. That such a huge invading army was eventually destroyed. So never ever think that that if all you can make is dua, then that will belittle the impact of dua. Do not do that. Dua has a lot of impact. Continue to make dua, please. Continue to make dua, because the people of Gaza have been suffering now for almost 10 months. And Allahu A'lam, it seems their suffering will have to continue for a while. But we will have to continue making dua, because we're all a part of that story. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala listens to the dua. So for those of us who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses, we may be able to see the end of this tyranny with our own eyes. Inshallah soon. Inshallah soon. وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ طَيْرًا أَبَابِيلَ. For he, subhanahu wa ta'ala, sent against them flock of birds. The understanding here is clear. I don't need to go into any more detail, except I just want to point out that this was long before drones. That's right, due to the essence of worship. This was long before drones. This was long before people could imagine any attack from the air. But these birds came and they were carrying these stones. So what about the stones? تَرْمِيهِمْ بِحِجَارَةٍ مِّن سِجِّيلٍ. They pelted them with stones of baked clay. So this word sijil, by the way, comes from the Persian of sengegil. It came into Arabic. This Arab loves. Sometimes the Arabic language has pulled in words from in history from other languages. So sengegil, or the stone made out of clay, that became sijil in Arabic. Tarmihim means targeted. It doesn't mean just threw. These birds were not just throwing stones. Each stone had a target. This was targeted towards a specific person or horse or camel or animal or elephant or whatever. This was targeted to destroy the army. So each bird, tarmihim bihijaratin bisijil, targeted them. This doesn't come across in the translation, which is why I'm emphasizing. Tarmi or rami is we use arrows, targeting using arrows for archery. That's rami. Mark stones, yeah, sure. Mark stones is a good way of saying that. فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَعَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ, leaving them like chewed up straw, which no one cares about. In fact, I mentioned that some of the people who became blind and were living around Mecca, these were people from Abraha's army. That must have come from many different races. These were people from Abraha's army, and they eventually would beg because they had no other means of making it back to their homes, and they had no other means of feeding themselves. So they would beg, and people just like the people feed beggars. So the people of Mecca and the people of that region, they would feed those people. That's the ones who were left, and the ones who were hit by the stone, it was as if the stones were going through their bodies. The marked stones were going through their bodies, and the bodies were opening up like that. And this was visible to the Arabs for years afterwards, because all of those bodies, those animals, these elephants and their carcasses, and they were all left there in Wadi Muhassar to rot. And people from all over the region would come for Hajj, and they would come and see and observe. That's how these stories spread. So this was well known. Everyone knew that this had happened. Everyone knew what the outcome of that was. Ka'asfin ma'kul, like chewed up straw. This, the outcome of those who had come with arrogance. This was the outcome of people like that. Some key lessons that I want us to take away from this. First of all, the Kaaba is significant because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it significant. That's why it is significant. That is why it is important to us. There will be a time close to the judgment when the Kaaba will be destroyed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best how. We know this from the hadith of the Prophet but the significance of the Kaaba has remained from the time of Adam alayhi salam and will remain until the day of judgment. It is a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth. It unites us, and it gives us a common spiritual direction. By the way, I have seen people who have been Muslim for a long period of time, but when they see the Kaaba for the first time, it's like there's an earthquake in their hearts. And it's not because the building is beautiful, or it's not because there's something else special about it. It's because it is a sign of Allah. So one very quick story I wanted to mention. One of my teachers, he had a student who converted to Islam because he wanted to marry a Muslim woman. So the woman said, "Okay, I will not marry a non-Muslim." So anyway, he said, "Okay, I'll become a Muslim." But he says he was telling my teacher that I became a Muslim only because I wanted to get married. So I got, I said the Shahada, and they taught me to pray and all that, but Iman didn't penetrate my heart. But the wife was a practicing Muslim, so the wife wanted to change things. So they arranged to go to Umrah. And he said, when I went to do the Umrah and I saw the Kaaba for the first time, that is when I realized the power of God. These are things that some of us may appreciate, some of us may not appreciate, but they affect people. And I've seen people, grown men, just burst into tears when they see the Kaaba for the first time. So it is a sign of Allah on earth. I've also mentioned that it unites us, and thirdly, it gives us a common spiritual direction. And the last point I want to make here is anyone who fights God, whether it is by fighting the people of God, like those who are fighting the innocent people of Gaza are doing right now, or it is by, let's say, as Allah mentions, engaging in and encouraging people to take interest. That's also something that Allah says is like somebody who's fighting with me. Or it is in some other way that somebody is opposing the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you fight against God, you are digging a hole for yourself. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from ever even stepping in a direction like that. It is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's special mercy and his special kindness that we are here living, breathing, seeing, thinking, and the limited time that we have on this earth, we should spend that time connecting with him so that on the day of judgment, we don't end up among people who were fighting him. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us. As always, I'm going to leave you with a homework. This is Muhammad Siddiq Minshawi. And I want you to, it's a short surah, right? You guys recite it regularly. but we'll inshallah share this in the group. Make sure you pay attention to his pronunciation of words. Very, very good, the way he pronounces words. Finally, make sure you recite this surah regularly to remind yourself, like I will do, and what they've left behind. And the fact that they had the fleeting presence, they were here for a short while and now they're gone. And then there will be a time when we will all be gone as well. So let this surah be a reminder of the short period of time that we're in this earth and how any type of arrogance will not mean much in the grand scheme of things, even to us, but will certainly destroy us in the afterlife. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the opportunity to act upon what we've learned. And inshallah, I will see you guys next Saturday. Bye. Assalamu alaikum.